I was part of an island exploration team in the Indian Ocean. I was the only survivor. Part 1. Written by Blackwings16. I'm not sure if any of you, or the average person at that, ever think about the vastness of the ocean and what it holds or what it hides. Apparently, we have explored more of space than our own blue giants that make up 73% of the planet. This fact has always baffled me, but I have come to understand why. Before I tell you about the last 4 years of my life, allow me to introduce myself. My name is Holden Branson, and I am currently in a government-mandated psychiatric ward in the Midwest. I grew up in the Keys of Florida with about as much money as a bum on the street. In retrospect, I guess I was living on the street, minus the bum part. My parents, who were hardly out of their 20s, were drug addicts to say the least. We bounced around from place to place, finding jobs in the fishing industry, boat tours, and occasional theater productions. I'm not quite sure how 2 heroin addicts became such gifted actors. Maybe it was from the years of lying and scamming money and drugs. Who knows? I was 12 when they both died. Can you take a guess how? Well, unless you have no intuition or just aren't paying attention while you read, they overdosed, which left me utterly and entirely alone. It was about time. Now, don't get me wrong, I loved my parents, but they were always so controlling. I was never able to explore on my own or take the lead on whatever job we were working on at any given time. I felt powerless and honestly completely useless. After mourning their deaths for what most people would say was an unhealthily short amount of time, I set off towards Key West, the southernmost tip of Florida. My goal was to put an end to the non-stop movement that had become my life for the past 12 years. I wanted a place to stay in for more than a few months. I wanted a home, and I found one. When I arrived in Key West by bus, I quickly realized that not many jobs were hiring, and that the ones that were looking for help that required a liquor license or at least someone of the age to legally handle liquor. After what felt like an endless hell of trying to find a job and using my childlike innocence on the streets for spare change, I finally met a fishing guide named Todd. I was sitting on a street corner in the middle of the night trying to haggle drunk strangers passing by from their nights out into dropping some spare cash for food when Todd approached me. "What are you doing out here, son?" he said in a thick southern Florida accent. He looked to be in his early 40s. He had a buzzed head with dirty blonde hair, as well as a beard and a body that made him look like he might have been in the SEALs at one point in time. At first, I wrote him off as some drunk guy trying to hassle me, but he pushed through my stubborn behavior. "Son, you shouldn't be out here at this hour. Some crazy folks from up north will mess with you," he scolded me. "Come with me, I got a spare room for you. It ain't much, but it's a bed and it's safe," he said with a genuine kindness. I looked up at him with thankful yet cautious eyes and figured, why not? Now I know that it seems sketchy to walk off with an unknown man, but I hadn't slept on a bed in weeks, and I could care little to none if this man killed me. My life was already a mess. After a short walk and some awkward small talk, we arrived at the docks of the Western Marina. Todd ushered me towards a rather large yet old-torn looking boat and showed me to my room. "Now, after taking a look at you, I figure you could use some chow, am I right?" he said with his back turned towards me as he opened a cabinet in the small kitchen the boat offered. I didn't even answer him as I ripped the bag of beef jerky from his hand and began to devour it. "Holy smokes, I'll take that as a yes," he said with a slight chuckle. "Sorry, but it's all I have at the moment. Wish I could cook you up something fresh." "It'll do," I said through a mouthful of jerky. "So, what are you doing sitting on the street at this hour heckling people for money? Where's your family? You a runaway?" he asked me with a stern look on his face. I stopped shoveling the jerky into my mouth at the sound of his words and I solemnly lowered my head. It's something like that, I said. I think that he could pick up on the sadness in my voice and tell that I was all on my own because before I knew it, he was offering me a job. Look, kid, I can tell you're in a bit of a rough patch right now. So how about you come to work for me? The pay ain't great, but it's a job, and that will keep you well fed and with a bed. What do you say? You got any fishing experience? He said to me. I was sort of in shock. Why was this guy offering a kid that he hardly knew a job half an hour after meeting him? Was he some sort of pedophile? Also, why in the world couldn't I find a job in the fishing business when I first arrived here, when this guy is looking to hire strangers? Hold up, I said with a serious, adult-like tone. I think that it surprised him because his head shot up faster than my parents had when they heard a nearby dealer. I'm awful grateful for what you're doing right now, but we just met, mister. I started. So, no offense, but I'm not sure how I feel about taking a job and staying on a boat with you when I don't know what you're about, I said. He lowered his head ever so slightly. You're a smart kid, I'll tell you that, he said while staring at the table below his chest. My son, who was your age, used to be my second mate not too long ago. He was about your age, a good kid too, but he started to drift off a bit and his face now looked more saddened by the second. He passed away. He fell overboard in a storm about a year ago. I tried to help him. I tried to save him. But the water was tossing the boat so bad I almost ended up in there with him, he said, a tear pulling away from his eye. I ain't some creep looking to take young boys in for some screwed up purpose. I am in need of a second mate and you are in need of a home. The past year has been difficult trying to man this boat alone. I haven't been getting many charters due to it, he said. The job is yours if you want it. Even if you have no experience, I'll teach you, he finished. I sat there for a few moments, taking in everything that he had said. I couldn't help but feel sorry for Todd, but I also felt similar. We had both had to deal with the loss of family, which in turn had knocked us both down. I looked up at him. Well, actually, sir, I started. I have a few years of fishing and second mate experience. I worked on a few boats in Miami and Boca Grande, I stated. Well, you would be a blessing. So, what you thinking, he said. I'll help you out. I'll take the job, I said, with a look of hope. Well, I'll be. You might be able to help get this old girl back to her former glory, he said as he patted the walls of the boat. He began to walk out of the room, and before he turned the corner, he stopped and looked back at me. We'll get started first thing tomorrow. By the way, what's your name, kid? Holden, sir. Holden Branson, I said. Well, welcome aboard the Sea Legend, he said, and with that, he left the room. The next several years were magnificent. We quickly became one of the most sought-after fishing charters in the Keys. We were hauling big catch and giving our customers a memory to think back on. Things were going so well, I even made enough money to buy my own boat and take out more charters. Todd and I grew very close over the years. We would sit on deck at night and watch the sunset with a few beers and just take in the beauty. He was a very caring man and still is. He was the father figure that I needed in my life. Fast forward a few more years and I was in my early 20s. I was chartered to take an older couple fishing and on a sunset boat ride. As we dropped some lines in the water, the woman pointed towards a small island about a mile in the distance. Hey, she exclaimed, can you possibly take us over there to watch the sunset? I was confused because there were no map islands near the Keys. But then again, I was trying a new fishing spot, so I guess I shouldn't have been too surprised. Sure thing, ma'am. It looks like there is a grassland on the highest point of it, so we should get a lovely view, I said with a smile. I pulled in the lines that I had casted and drove the boat over to the sandy shores of this newly discovered petite island. It was gorgeous. The shores were a soft, white-colored sand with shells lining the edges closest to the water. I beached the boat and I helped the couple onto the beach. It was clear that no one had been here any time recently. It all looked untouched, so wild, but so breathtaking. I guided the couple towards the edge of a sheer cliff, the highest point on the island, and I was able to find a small clearing which sloped up to the top. As we walked through the swaying palm trees and green vegetation, I saw a small spring in the center of the island with crystal clear water. I was drunk on the beauty of this place. I was obsessed. We made our way to the top and sat on the soft, healthy-looking grass that lined the top of the cliff. The sunset was gorgeous. The whole island was gorgeous. But how could a beauty like this not be mapped? Shouldn't everyone be able to enjoy this kind of tranquility and natural luxury? After heading back to the marina after the charter, I quickly became obsessed with discovering new islands such as this. I filled Todd's ears with my love for that island as well as facts about the other unexplored islands that I had done research on. It didn't take long for him to realize that I seemed to have a passion for this. A few weeks later, he approached me on my boat, named the Rolling Stone. I'm a classic rock fan, if you couldn't tell. "Holden, I have an opportunity for you that I think will give you a heart attack," he said with a smirk. I stopped washing the stern and quickly shot up to meet his gaze. "A friend of mine works over at the university in Miami, and he's leading a team of 10 in the Indian Ocean mapping out uncharted islands. And they need someone who can work the boat and haul them some catch to keep them fed," he said happily. I couldn't even process the words properly due to my excitement. "He said that they would love to have you on board and be part of the team," Todd said while clapping his hands in a gesture of excitement. I couldn't even speak. I was blown away. This was what I needed. An adventure of a lifetime. An adventure filled with discovery and excitement, or so I thought. Before I knew it, I was at the Miami Beach Marina, ready to board my home for the next 6 months, the Sea Dragon. It was massive as well as luxurious. I'm guessing that it was about 150 feet in length. I had never worked on a boat so gargantuan, but I was looking forward to working with the other mates. Upon boarding, I met the team of 10 that I would be working with. To save time, because this post seems to be nearing its limits, I'll just tell you their names for now. My fellow team members consisted of Jim, Miguel, Ryan, Joe, Emily, Stephanie, Brent, Craig, Bert, and John, who was leading the expedition. We had a long sail ahead of us, and I made myself comfortable in my room. To save a little more time, I'm going to skip ahead to when we arrived in the Indian Ocean, at the chain of islands that we were meant to explore. Not much happened on the voyage over, other than getting to know my team and crew better, as well as catching supper. However, Stephanie and I did grow rather close, but more on that later. As we sailed closer and closer to the chain of islands, I was able to take in their full beauty. There was about 8 of them, and they came in many varieties. Some were massive, about the size of Manhattan, and some were no bigger than a mile or two in length and width. We decided to start with the northernmost, largest island. We lowered 2 small powered boats into the water to make our way to the island and quickly boarded them. We were about 200 yards away when the engine on the boat that I was on seemed to cut out. As Miguel and I checked the motor and the mechanics, Jim sat at the stern peering into the water. "Look at all this marine life," he shouted with excitement. "There are fish I haven't even seen before here. The colors on them probably point to them belonging in the... Wait, what is that?" he said. I bashed my head on the ceiling of the internal hull due to an ear-piercing, fear-filled scream from Emily. I quickly jolted up, ignoring the throbbing pain from the top of my head, only to see a large, blackish, veiny hand grab Jim's head and pull him into the water below. Well, that's all I have for now. I will update more tomorrow or the day after that, but I'm nearing the end time for my daily computer privileges. I will go into more detail about the crew and the team in my next update.